Warning. The following contains bright, flashing lights and /or imagery that may cause discomfort and /or seizures for those with photosensitive epilepsy. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey, Micah.
Hey, buddy.
You almost ambushed us in here, man. We were like, with our hands in our pockets right now, trying to set everything up, and this guy just showed up behind us. Ninja training, fucking great, tiptoeing and all that. Man, have you ever been to Tijuana before?
I have. Yeah.
Okay, can you?
I actually saw the zebra donkey.
That's Zwanky. Zwanky is what it's called. Yeah, that's a weird thing here in Tijuana. That just basically a poor donkey painted as a zebra.
Man, that's tough. I wonder what that donkey did in his past life.
Well, Tijuana's famous for the zebra donkeys and also the donkey spectacles, which are true, actually. Oh, yeah. Long story and a weird picture that I have somewhere. But
love Mexico.
You spent some time out here in California,
Yeah.
We're at.
So Coronado, stationed out here going through buds and SQT.
Yeah, so this is like a familiar place in a way. It's
Totally.
changed.
Yeah.
It's changed.
I've come down and done some of the Baja. My buddy, team guy, races for Spitfire Racing. I was a helicopter medic for 3 years for the race team.
That's awesome.
So
That's
I've come
awesome.
down here, and I love it down here.
Awesome. So you do some amazing work. We're gonna talk about that in a bit. But tell me about how growing up. Like what were you like growing up? What did you do growing up that kind of led you down this weird ass path that you were on?
I'll tell you a funny story that I just heard 2 weeks ago. My sister ran for county commissioner in upstate New York.
Okay.
And she was giving this speech, and a guy came up to her and asked her, is your name Alicia Fink? And she goes, yeah, that was her, maiden name.
Yeah.
And he goes, I'm Officer so-and-so. He goes, is Micah Fink your brother?
Okay.
And she goes, yeah. She goes, in my entire career, he was the guy that I had arrested more times as a juvenile than anybody else in the history of my 25-year law enforcement career.
That is a beautiful.
And so she said, what's your brother doing now? She's like, oh, she told her all my background. He was like shocked. And so they sent a selfie picture together. And I didn't recognize the guy. I was like a little kid. But I grew up in rural upstate New York. And, I was a telephone pole lineman. I was kind of a rebel and wild man. Worked on a dairy farm.
Dairy farm?
Yeah.
I grew up on a pig farm myself, and I know a little bit of what that's like. That's not very luxurious work. That's not very luxurious work, right? Working on a dairy farm.
It's disgusting.
It's disgusting work. Basically, lactating cows that are constantly producing milk. The smell, the wounds, the pus, all of that stuff is pretty.
And the barn cats that are like, it's disgusting.
God, can you drink a glass of milk after that?
No, I actually don't. I don't want to drink milk. I don't want to participate with milk or events involving milk.
I am. People sometimes ask me if I'm lactose intolerant. I'm lactose aware. Is what I tell them.
Yeah, lactose aware.
What type of trouble were you getting into out there?
I was just a scrappy kind of kid. All the things. Throwing rocks at cars, getting in fights, like. Stealing shit, I was a wild kid.
Now, what were you rebelling against? What were you angry about?
Well, so I've talked a lot about my youth and stuff like that, over the years. I just, my parents were like super strict religious people.
Okay.
My dad was did some hard time in prison, and then became a Christian. And my grandfather was a mob guy. He did like 10 years in prison.
Okay.
So it was like in my genetics, I think. I don't know. It's just like I just never was. My dad would always tell me all these stories about, all the things, and then to tell me so that I would never do them. But then I was just like, that sounds so cool.
That sounds pretty exciting.
It's like, sounds amazing. Harleys, brawls.
So you have some generational work going on with you. Probably.
Yeah, and I've been doing it, actually. I feel like personally with the work that I've done, I've been able to change. I have 5 kids. And I've been able to change the trajectory of their lives. They're not even remotely close to even anything like I was in any way. Even the parenting and just the way that I relate to them and show them love has dramatically changed in my life.
Angry, rebellious,
Angry.
throwing rocks. Somebody says something about you, you turn around, you're not gonna do the other cheek situation.
No, like I was angry. You know, I hate to sometimes I like tell these stories. I feel like people want to say like, oh, you're like a tough guy or whatever, but like I was.
Yeah.
Like I was, because I just had this real anger towards me, and I actually never wanted to join the military. I was like a total nonconformist until I was
What type of music were you listening to?
like Tupac and Method Man and like System of a Down and like hardcore metal, hardcore hip hop.
Around what year was this? What you were like?
I mean, high school in '96.
Yeah, so like, you're going into
Rage Against the Machine. All the things.
You're going into the late '90s, early 2000s, just listening to all this shit, throwing rocks at cars.
The Stooges. I mean, just stuff that was just like.
I grew up on punk rock myself.
Yeah.
I remember listening to People of the Sun and then trying to imagine what it would be like rolling down Rodeo with a shotgun.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I rolled down Revolution with an MP5, but not Rodeo. But you have this, anger. That's basically energy, like unkept energy, probably when you're that age. You're going into the 2000s like that. What happens in the 2000s? That kind of like.
Yeah, I left home actually at 16. So.
So you were independently living.
Independently, I moved to Miami.
At 16.
To Miami.
That's
with some friends.
That's
$10 in a Saab.
That is wild.
I don't see a lot of Saabs around, but shout out to Saab. I'm trying to get sponsored by them. But I just I came back home and so I'd grown up on and off being a lineman, so climbing telephone poles, worked for like various families,
you had
businesses.
A trade.
Yeah, I had a trade. And so I came back, I started doing that. I started my own business, and then 9/11 happened, and I was there. So
you were
at the World. So I was in Queens, New York, when the first plane hit the World Trade Center.
Working.
What
you're working as a lineman?
I was on a telephone pole. I was on a 60-foot pole over a railroad track, just outside of a little neighborhood in Queens, New York, and that's when the first plane hit the World Trade Center.
Like, what was that? What did you see it? Did you hear it?
No, I mean,
people started reacting to it.
Yeah, within minutes, like the smoke and stuff kind of was going on from the city. Like, but it was, I ended up. My buddy called me on the next telephone. I came down and I ended up going to a lady's house. Her door was open. Asked if I could see the TV, what was going on, and I made the decision I was going to go into the city.
You just made a decision. Let me see what I can do to help.
Yeah.
Now,
I had no skills.
Well, that's an interesting thing that you are going towards it.
I went right into it. Like
what made you go towards it? Like, what was it going through your mind? Like, I need to do something.
Probably the same thing. The reason why I threw rocks at cars and constantly got fights or something. I never wanted to be in a situation where I was helpless, and I think ultimately that's where it stemmed from. And I had this like innate fear, which I've worked through in my life, of being taken advantage of. Okay. Or fucked over, or whatever. Like
you don't want to be a
victim. I don't want to be a victim of anything. And so I had no skills. I went into New York and I was there when the Tower 7 fell. I got I think it was 3 hours. I was covered in smoke. I couldn't see my hand in front of my face.
Are you wrapping shit around your face?
Yeah, I had my shirt sleeve wrapped around my face, and then I had my shirt pulled over my head. I was legitimately, I could get my eyes washed out, and
How many people were running towards it as you were running?
Just mobs. Mobs of people were running. It was total chaos. People don't. I look back at 9/11 and I'm like, man, it was the craziest experience because it was like the end of the world. Like, it felt like the end of the world because the structures and it was just the sounds of the metal.
No, you were running towards it. How many people were running away?
I'm just.
Did you get like
lots of people were just running away?
Did you get any of the don't go?
No, it was every man for themselves. Yeah.
It's funny how quiet we get when we run, right?
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing. So you're running towards this apocalypse, basically, scenario where everything's kind of falling. People are are for themselves at this moment with like basic nature. You don't want to be a victim. But also, I think, I don't know, what was your feelings about people there, like helping other people? Like, what's
Well,
that?
I found a dead police officer underneath the car. A bunch of people were there. We lifted the car up. He was underneath the car. Must have hid underneath there or something. And then I found like a torso and some like there were watches and things. And I actually climbed like inside the World Trade Center. We're talking about being like unqualified and unsafe. Like I had flashlights taped to a hard hat, and I crawled into the superstructure. And it was like the sounds and the smoke and the steam. I was just trying to help save people. But there's no one to save.
Your mentality was like, somebody's here. Let me see if I can pull them out.
Yeah.
See how we can do it. That's insane. Yeah. Insane to think about.
Changed my life.
You go through that experience, and I imagine that experience is still with you in a lot of ways. It didn't end the world, but I think it did end something, though, that event. I mean, a lot of people were affected by it. I mean, I can trace back my inability to continue on my medical career, because that's what I was studying in the university, medicine here in Mexico, to that event. I was putting on my clothes and figuring out my books, giant-ass books back then, no computers, no laptops back then. And I saw that second plane hit that building, and the economy went to the toilet, and I couldn't afford to go to school anymore, and I had to figure out something else, Now, for you going through that experience, I mean, what was the after effect of that experience for you? Was it anger? Was it like, what do I do now? Do I continue on working as a lineman? Do I go back to my regular life? Like, what was that about?
For me, I kind of, I remember sitting there, and I've said this a bunch of times. Because it's such a pivotal moment in my life. I remember sitting there in the East River with my guy I grew up with my whole life, big skater kid, and he looked at me on September 12th and he said, "What are we gonna do?" And I remember I looked at him, I said, "Fucking kill whoever did this." And that's what I said.
Retribution.
Yeah, and he just looked at me. I remember he was just like, "We'll be all right, bro. Get through this," or something.
No.
And I was like, really meant it. And that's when I started thinking about joining the military.
So retribution.
Retribution.
Which is, again, you talked about some of your early life and some of the people finding God and Christianity. That's not a Christian-like thing to think about retribution in that moment, I guess. For some people.
That was the first thing I thought. I remember when he asked me that question, it just kind of rolled off the tongue because, once again, I think I just was afraid of being a victim.
I understand that, I guess. Going from being a lineman, living your, probably had some sort of freedom in your life, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're doing your own thing, doing your own business. Now you're gonna leave all that and chase retribution after this traumatic event, going through basically one of the biggest terrorist attacks that the country's ever suffered. Yeah. And your answer to that is leaving everything behind and seeking retribution.
Yeah, I remember. It's interesting being back here in San Diego. I was like, watched the Bud students yesterday, kind of out on the beach, and I had my son and my daughter with me. And took them out in the ocean when we got in, and it was cold. And I just sat on the beach, and I was just thinking about. I remember showing up there. I felt like so inadequate. I didn't have the normal trajectory of a lot of guys. It wasn't something I've been training for my whole life.
What's the normal trajectory for a lot of the guys?
A lot of guys, like, it's what they wanted to do their whole life. They're this, they're,
And this is pre, the SEALs were known, but it's not.
But it was quiet. I didn't know what they were. I actually, initially, I got, I guess, recruited in the sense a guy kind of pulled me out of the line and showed me a video.
Okay.
And the video worked.
Okay.
Clearly.
What was in that video?
CJ Crocus doing flutter kicks with nut huggers on.
Oh, yeah. That's a shit. It has some shit in his hair? Like a shit in the...
Yeah, he was in the desert or something. And he's like... But they showed people coming out of the swamps and all... it was all the 80s stuff, Vietnam kind of stuff.
Cool shit that you never got to do, probably.
No, I was looking at that. I was like, man, I could do that. They're like, yeah. These are the Navy SEALs. I was like, sweet.
At this point, you just leave your business behind...
Yeah, well, what had happened was the economy
bombed.
And all building in New York City, ended. And I was like low guy in the totem pole as a subcontractor for.
So you really basically didn't have any choice in a way, I guess.
No. I mean, I guess I could have like
Figure it out.
tried to figure it out, but I was just so. I mean that. It's funny because I just look back. I'm like, man, that really had an impact on me, and I don't think I realized it. I think I just had already done so many things at this point in my life. I just kind of got really like focused on wanting to do something.
Yeah.
I just didn't want my story to end. Like I come back and it just like kind of.
Yeah.
That was terrible, and I'm on the news crying or whatever.
You decide to join the military. A recruiter pulls you out, shows you a video with a bunch of dudes doing somersaults and swimming in the water and coming out of a swamp, throwing tomahawks and shit like that. You're like, this matches my path to retribution that I set forth on that pier. You know, what's next? You go through the selection process.
Yeah, I mean, I showed up. I went to boot camp, and I remember like getting to boot camp and thinking like, what have I done? Like these, like, because it was boot camp was a bunch of nerds. Like it was like a bunch of like nerd people, and I was like, I had been training so hard, and I didn't really know how to train. I had to learn how to swim.
It's not like now where they have like a book out and like YouTube channel, or you could go through the experience before you go there. It's none of that shit. You're just like, do I run? Do I do Rocky Balboa shit?
I was running through the hood like carrying a rock. Like I was laughing. I was telling my daughter, I was like, man, I remember like the biggest thing for me was to order like the boots. Like I had to have the boots, and so I got the boots, and I had a pair of camouflage pants. I got like the Goodwill or something, and I would like go out and train. I'd run through the hood like. And I just would, I was working 3 jobs at the time, and I really wanted to, like, at the time, like, I just really wanted to, like, defend my country. Like, the war had started. I started getting glued into the news and all those kind of things. And so when I showed up at boot camp, I was, like, really focused. And then I got to boot camp, and that was, like, the most boring thing, like, I'd ever. Navy boot camp is, like, the hardest part is, like, just not ironing your underwear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You going through that, you're like, this is probably not the place for me.
Yeah.
This is, I made a mistake.
Yep. That's what I thought.
You went through that, and then you get access to that BUDS training. Yeah. Now, there's been a lot of recent controversy around BUDS. Specifically the dangers of that training. I've not gone through that myself. I've gone through some retarded training in Mexico where people shot AK-47s around my head to simulate realism, and I can't hear this here. If you want to talk about dangerous training, I could point you the way to some shit like that. But what was your experience of going through BUDS?
I actually saw the guys out there yesterday kind of going through, and I was like really reflecting on that. And, training has to be dangerous because the thing is, as you know, combat's dangerous, war's dangerous, and the implications of not being prepared for that are deadly for the rest of the individuals that are around you, your team.
So people don't realize that if there is somebody there that is being allowed to go through, or standards are lowered for one individual, that individual could be a danger to the rest of the individuals, basically.
Yeah, well, here's the thing: is that it's like it's ultimately identifying the individual that can overcome their own physical and mental pain, and continue on and endure in the face of any and all obstacles. And so to get to that place, it takes. Well, like the program that I run, it takes pressure and time. And so, societies, psychologically wants to remove struggle, and they want to remove a difficulty. They want to make it easier, but they don't realize in the long run they're going to kill people, more people. And the first time that you get exposed to that, you don't want to be figuring it out right there.
Yeah.
Right there in that moment, like, uh-oh, I wish that they hadn't canceled that block.
Yeah.
And we all got to sleep all day and eat popcorn.
Yeah.
And look at people die in training, and that's just the way, it's unfortunate. And the families, and you're going to kill people. You're training to go around the whole world to kill other human beings.
Homicide is part of that, is part of the mission.
In the worst places. Like your sole purpose, we can do the flag, we can do all the things, we can do all this stuff and have the parades or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's about putting red dots on people. That's what it's ultimately about. And so to be the person that gets to that level, to be able to execute.
There has to be danger.
It has to be danger because you live in a life of danger.
So for you, going through that process, did you go through was that one time going through it?
Yep. First, yeah. Yep. Went through.
First try.
First try, went through everything.
Now, a question about that time of in history, because I imagine, I don't mean standards, but I imagine they were taking more people than they used to take during a wartime setting. Did you see? Do you experience like how the people that were there people there that normally or historically wouldn't be there? Was there a change in that dynamic as far as who was being
I think
let
you
in?
get the Hollywood crowd now, in my opinion. This is just my opinion, but I think you get the Hollywood crowd because, you know, the Navy SEALs, the fanfare, the ops, the stuff, they're on the TV, the History Channel, and then you watch that stuff and it sells it to you. The difference with me is I was there because I was at the World Trade Centers.
Yeah,
I didn't have any I didn't want a book deal. I wasn't trying to do this.
it's retribution.
Yeah. I wasn't trying to, I just wanted retribution.
And the people around you going through it with you, were they, you know, kind of on the same boat?
I feel like they were. I feel like a lot of the guys that I went through with, I think one of the things, you know, we had 157 guys that we started with. We graduated 13 original guys. We had some rollbacks and stuff in our class.
13?
13 original.
That death number.
Finish. Yeah, exactly. Which, it was the death number.
The death number.
Yeah.
And the people that went with you through that, who were they? Are they I ask this because a lot of people, I don't know, I don't think a lot of people know what type of individuals make it through, or specifically in that time, you know,
anybody can make it through that wants to.
Okay.
I've always said that because I feel that the difference with me was that I already experienced a lot of hardships in my life, a lot. And so when I went there, it was a hardship, and it was, you know, the hardest training, you know, in the world. But I had already experienced a pretty hard life at that point. And so I was prepared for that. A lot of guys came in, they had gone to college, their parents bought them a car, you know, their dad was a congressman or something. A lot of guys showed up that had kind of this primrose path that were able to, you know, they had all the tools. They played football. They were a star in Texas. Everybody loved them. I came from a place where there was none of that. Zero. And so I had already become my own cheerleader. So when guys were feeling, it's like combat. I'll equate it to combat. So the guys that experiencing their first hardships of that magnitude in training, you don't want to be feeling your first hardship in an actual real world war scenario where all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what is this? This is, I can't breathe. I can't catch my breath. Where is everybody? What's going on?
Let me piss on myself to get warm a little bit.
Exactly. It's and so you need to experience that first. And I think you know, if human beings could just get back to really rediscovering what we're capable of outside what we think we're capable of, we could get more work done.
You know, for me, thinking back on my own experiences and my youth and how it ended, I think rites of passages, you know, are kind of missing in our society. And in a way, I mean, for you, that was initiation basically into whatever was happening there after that, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just don't go through that, you know, because we want to keep our kids safe. We don't want them to go into the woods with a knife and come back with a fucking bear skin on their back. You know, that's not what a good parent does, right? So you go through buds, you make it 13, death number, interesting. You know, I'm into numerology myself. That's an interesting number. You come out of that now. What's next for you coming out of that?
You know, I got out. You know, went to medic school in Fort Bragg and did all that. Got to my first team, and you know, I did a couple deployments there. And at this point in my life, I haven't thought about this stuff in a while. It's funny. I was really still not. I wanted to do more.
Yeah,
I wanted to do more. I didn't feel like when you get over there, it was we were doing enough.
You were what was roundabout way? What were some of the tasks that you were given?
Yeah, so I went to STV Team 1.
Okay.
So out in Hawaii. Then I went to miniature submarine school. So I piloted mini subs, and then we did national tasking, which is about all I can say about that. Cool. But I was blown away to be a part of that. And then I augmented Dam Neck for a deployment. And then I wanted to continue on with my career and screen and all the things. And then I ran into the politics. I'd made E6, and I was up for chief, and all these other things started happening, and so I ended up getting out. And I got out bitterly. I would say I was bitter about it.
You deployed 2 times.
Yep.
Did you know the second time was your last?
No, because it was like. It was an incredible experience, and I got to do a lot of things, and I was, awarded, and all the things that went down with that.
When you stopped, you come back from this. I ask this a lot to people that go and deploy, because there's this whole aspect of acceptance that you are out. You're not going to go back, or that you are. People come back from that first, second deployment, and then something happens, it ends for you.
I wanted to stay. See, I wanted to go screen and continue on. And I had just a real jerk of a master, which I'm thankful for him, because I'd probably be dead, because I would have never got out. I would have stayed until I died.
Were you seeking death?
No, I don't think so. I was just seeking retribution.
Well, that's a two-sided dagger, retribution.
Yeah.
I asked that because when I got into my career, I was looking to make a difference in the bullshit that was going on around me. I was looking for retribution after the first of my friends was killed. Yeah. And then the second, and then the third, and then the fifth, and then the sixth, and then the eighth, and then the ninth. And then I had to tell a few widows that they were widows. And it just became all I was about was retribution. And then I realized that I was actually seeking a bullet for myself to be free of all of it, basically. And I didn't have the balls to do that myself. So when I talk about seeking death, I mean, sometimes we don't know that that's what we're looking for. But you were basically looking to find your way back there as many times as you could, to do what you could to seek retribution.
I wanted to keep on going. And so for me, I ended up getting the contract world. I went over, it was CIA contractor, but in the interim, I did some stuff. I was on the ambassador's detail in Iraq, so I picked up a couple contracts doing that. And so, I did between my time in the SEAL teams and that, I did 13 deployments.
That's
another 13. But and so I kept going back. And then I lost sight of what I was even doing.
You lost sight of what you're doing, or lost sight of yourself?
Myself.
You're like, like, who the fuck am I doing?
Yeah, I just became I was just, because, you're just going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth constantly.
What's home life like? Is there a home life?
No.
There's nobody.
No.
There's nothing.
It was terrible. I was married, I've been with my wife for, let's see, we've been together for 15 years and married for 10.
That's beautiful.
Well, it wasn't beautiful. It sounds beautiful.
It's,
well, what were you doing in those 15 years? Yeah. We just had our 5th kid.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I always look at where you are now,
yeah.
So you were going back, yes, a strong woman, by the way, wherever she is, it was emptiness basically when you went back. There was a lot of that going on.
Yeah, because in that world, you come back, you're home for 40 days, 45 days. And then right when things start to get we're so happy you're home, I'm gone again.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, I've never been through a first trimester with any of my children. None. There was times I left 2 weeks after they were born.
You would go back home. How did you cope going back home? For me, I asked this, for me going back home, I would be gone for 2 years and not come back.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a lot of people waiting for me. But when I would go back, I would find excuses to hide and or not confront shit or talk to people. And for me, it was alcohol. A bottle of mezcal about that big to start off, and the rest of it was margaritas, as I walked myself into a very peaceful slumber, just a drunken death. What was that for you?
I think for me it was that I was... It wasn't really alcohol or anything like that. I think I just lived in I worked out super hard. I trained super hard. I always boxed. I stayed in shape. I always had a mindset I was going back. So the home was about having sex, going out to eat, having beers, doing the thing. But I was really hyper focused on leaving again.
Yeah. So you were one foot home, but the other one is already ready to bolt.
Yeah.
And also I guess for me, because I went through the whole, I didn't fight training myself, and I would go into the gym and do all that and run like an animal for, whatever amount of time. I grew up Catholic, so I know what self-flagellation is, and I know that we torture and punish ourselves in different ways. Do you think there was an aspect of that as far as you trying to, exert yourself or prepare yourself or sharpen yourself like a stick to go back as you were supposed to be enjoying, the slowdown?
Yeah, I mean, there is no slowdown. 45 days is not enough to come home and then like to kind of reintegrate. And so I just kept doing that up until 2014.
That is some time. How are your knees?
I'm actually good. I have 2 blown meniscuses or whatever, but whatever. One's from a horse rack, the other one's training and stuff. But like I just kept doing it until 2014, and then
13 deployments.
Yep.
And then politics, you start losing yourself and everything. You just find no motivation to stay on, and you just.
No, I got in a huge gunfight, and a buddy was killed, and just the way the thing went down, it just kind of, I was just done.
Was the. So I don't want to touch on what happened, but was the process?
It was a meat grinder. Let me tell you, like it was intense. It was one of the most intense. It was probably like top 3 most intense thing I've ever experienced in my life.
What about it made it a moment or a situation for you to quit after that?
Well, I stayed on. I finished the deployment. I got home on Christmas Eve. And I was really like, I think I was just burned out. I was just burned out. I didn't even know what I was doing anymore. It became a job to me. And then I realized I was just nothing more than just a tool. I was just a hammer. Like I was used, like the people, I remember, this guy was dead. 3 people were wounded severely and were pinned down in a house, 6-story house. Like, went in there and guys had gotten, a V-bed went off, blew the front of the house off. It was like the safe house. This whole thing went down. I remember I was like getting coffee. I got back at like 6 o'clock in the morning and covered in blood, like, the deal. And so I was getting coffee and this lady's like walks up to me, like this Intel analyst, and is like, "Is that you guys? I was trying to sleep last night. You guys are making so much noise with those trucks outside my chew."
No, holy shit.
And I remember I just like looked at her and I was just like, I just realized that I'm nothing.
You're nothing.
I'm nothing.
You're nothing. You're
I got the cool tactical stuff. I got the cool pants and the sneakers and the stuff and the sunglasses, the gaiters, whatever.
Yeah.
But I just realized and then I realized well, through all the things that we were doing on the tactical side of that job, I was like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And then, you look at what happened in Afghanistan, the pullout and all the things, and it just goes to show you nothing.
Nothing.
Didn't matter.
Nothing. I had a moment like that myself, like going through horrible shit, just being covered in other people's faces that you knew,
Mm-hmm.
like I remember sitting in the Red Cross with a paramedic walking up to me and doing this to my hair and pulling out a piece of a molar. And I knew that molar was a friend of mine's because it had a filling in there, And, that shit stays, obviously, with you for a while. The smell, the sounds, all that shit kind of like...
Why all the war? Why so much...
People are not against you, just they're for themselves. And that is at the core of most of human nature. And I think some people foster that. And some people forget that we're, in the end, we're all about the same thing, I don't know. Did you talk about the pullout and what happened, seeing that 0911 plane flying off with some people hanging on, which is a pretty interesting coincidence. Again, numerology going on there, right?
It's not a coincidence.
You have this plane taking off, and I had some friends out there, some Marine friends out there that were killed during the pullout. Some people I met during my time going through my immigration process in Pendleton. Young kids, people like you, they were motivated. They're like, we're doing some shit. We're making a difference. And, they're gone, they're gone fleeing a place that was being held. And, I still like ask people, what it feels like, that futility of it, what it feels like. Because I feel it every day, like I went through my own weird ass war, and you asked me what we did, and I was like, we bought some time. That's about it.
That's about it, yeah.
You bought some time for some people to do some things, and then you were sent on your way, and on our end, and we're fucking, nobody can say shit about us.
You look at the real impact of war now. I mean, like, it can't be understated. Like, what it's not just into, and look at it's not going away.
No.
Okay, it's only going to increase and become more sophisticated. Right?
Yeah. I mean, we're sitting on the sidelines of it now. We're doing our own thing now, as living our afterlife is what I'd like to call it. And then I have two guys that went off in the Ukraine to train some people out there as far as medical management and shit like that. I have friends of mine that are going out and doing their own life path and going off to war. And looking at me and saying like, "Hey, yeah, you did your shit," and like, I see all these guys doing their things, and they're back, and they're like, they seem like solid people. Yeah, it's expensive. It's an expensive fucking road, Just be sure about whatever you're gonna do out there. Now you come back with those experiences. You were already a independent man with a trade, running into a building that just went down with a t-shirt over your face. Now you have even more trade skills, bankable trade skills,
No, I mean, no. I mean, like, yeah, I guess actually I thought about going back to line school, and I kind of wasn't sure. I just knew I was done.
Yeah.
And I was done. I didn't want to wear the clothes. I didn't want to do tactics. I didn't want to do it. I just was done. I was done.
Everything off.
That's why, like, even today, it's like I'm not, like, I always make the joke. I'm like, I'm not in the cool vet club because I don't dress up as a vet and do all the things. I don't play dress up anymore. I don't do any of the things. Like, I'm not, like, sitting there going.
You don't go to the range and, put on some of that shit?
No, dude, check me out. Like, I got this. I'm not. I've moved far beyond my life. And listen, it took me a while because that was my whole identity.
Yeah.
And then everybody you get around, all your friends, everybody that gets around you. And so, when you get into this identity projection.
So when you say that was your identity, you get out of it, you strip the skin off of this. You take off your skull, You put your spear on the wall, whatever that was. And you come back, and most of the people around you want to talk about the skin you had on.
Oh my God.
Is that correct kind of?
It's not even just about talking about it. It's about, like, I think about a huge amount of time in my life I was involved in the special operations community. And then you get out and it's like over.
Yeah.
Like, just like, I'm done. And then I'm just sitting there like, okay, like, man, it's taken me to get to where I am today as a person. It's taken me an immense amount of time of self-work to get there. And so that's really started the spiral in my life. My life started spiraling once I got out.
When you say spiraling, for the negative, were you lost?
Negative.
Were you basically,
I was just lost.
Was that your Jesus in the desert moment?
Pretty much, yeah.
What type of devils showed up to talk to you, and what did they offer?
Those devils, everything, drugs, alcohol.
Now, would you say drugs? Like what?
Well, I mean, I hate to like call it like a drug or whatever, but like, I mean, I smoked a lot of pot, I drank a lot of beer.
Yeah,
I just like I hung out, I worked out. I mean, I wasn't a slob or anything like that, but I was like, I was depressed.
Yeah,
I was depressed because I had lost all realization of who I was as a person. Like, I was like hitting rock bottom.
Your identity was.
My marriage fell apart. Completely fell apart. Like, here I am. I made it home. Yay!
You're supposed to be happy because.
And then it just.
But you're supposed to be happy because you made it through that shit alive. You came out of this shit. Why aren't you fucking happy? Why aren't you celebrating with us, dude?
It's miserable.
Why aren't you celebrating? Why are you talking about some of that shit that went on?
Yeah.
Why don't you want to share what's going on? Why are you quiet? Why are you fucking drinking? Why are you doing this shit? Why are you hiding from me? All that shit started happening for you.
Yeah.
you know, marriages. Like I have one failed marriage behind me. I think I don't know if I'll go through it again. You know, but and for me, it happened exactly at the end of my career. You know, as I was trying to figure what the fuck I was gonna do with all this weird ass fucking experience that I just went through. Right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, Ed, you want to go through all this training? Oh, yeah, fucking, I want to be the best at it. Yeah, fucking go through this, go to that, go to fucking Coronado. I trained with some of you guys for a bit. Fucking did all the training I did. It ends for me. Now what the fuck am I going to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the worst. I ended my marriage.
It's a change in pressure like that. You know, you go from I said it in one of the little short films that we've done, but I said, you know, you go from such a high pressure environment to such a no pressure environment that I think that change can kill you.
Yeah.
I know it can kill you.
Yeah.
And fortunately, what had happened for me was that, you know, I'd moved to Montana and I think I did like 2 more trips. We had moved to Montana. I did like two more deployments. And I didn't know one soul out there. Nobody. I didn't have a friend. I didn't know anybody. I just cold turkey moved everybody out there. You know, pregnant wife, bikini, like barbecue grill strap.
How many kids at this point?
I think she was 2, and then she was pregnant. And I just got a house on Craigslist and just moved out there.
A house on Craigslist in Montana,
and just drove out there.
Did you do any research?
Not really. Like, and it was the best decision I ever made in my life, though. But I ended up meeting I went on a hiking trip with my daughter, who's actually here with me. I took her on a hiking trip and I met these cowboys out in the backcountry with horses and stuff like that. And they ended up inviting me while I was on this hiking trip.
Marlboro Man. The Marlboro Man dude just like a
they were
horse.
out there packing and I ended up meeting these guys and they invited me back to the ranch. And, you know, those guys were real pieces of shit.
Okay.
But they're exactly what I needed at that point in my life.
When you say they're pieces of shit? Like,
they're just shysters and crooks.
Oh,
just of the worst
the
kind.
Fucking
Criminal shysters, horse trading, stealing, fence cutting, boozing, drink, all the things. It actually catered to me very well in the sense that, like, they were just real tough. They were just... If they were like the nicest like wallflowers that I ever met, and we're like, let's just like pet these things.
You wouldn't believe it.
I wouldn't have hung out.
Yeah.
These guys were rough, and so the first thing I learned was I started shooting horses for this guy, and you know, horses have now been a part of my life for 10 years. And
was that your introduction to just basically working with them?
Yeah. I mean, I've crossed 18 wildernesses on a horseback, wild mustangs.
What's that realization when you saddle your first horse? You know, it's independently from everybody else and just fucking get on and go out. What's that? What about that? Well, it was
in the present moment because at the time I was scared. Because I'd been bucked off and kicked. And these guys had hundreds of horses, all right? And so they're like, they used to be like, come on, Navy SEAL, get on that horse. And I could barely ride. And they'd be putting me on these horses. I would be getting power bombed constantly by various horses.
So you were fucking in survival mode, basically.
Constantly. But the thing is, I kept coming back because I liked it.
Fucking A.
Right?
Survival mode is
I would come back and I would be like, man, I had survived a thing. Yeah. And so what happened was it started... that I started working and I was with them all the time, and then it kept me outside of from my own demons, that I was facing, and then it helped me learn about myself.
Was it basically now you can't focus on your own shit because you have to focus on this animal? It doesn't want to kill you. Basically.
Absolutely, and plus, it's not like I had like the best like training. I didn't have any training program. Basically, they got on, showed me some things, and then they put me on horses that they needed ridden because they were selling them. So they'd be like, let's ride. I mean, I'd be 3 minutes into it. I remember one time I was just like, I had been riding for like 4 days, and this guy, now I've been training horses and all the things. Like, I would never put a human being with no experience on a horse like this. I remember I just was going through a brush one time, and I already hit the ground like 4 times that day. And of course, so I'm like terrified. I'm like pinching onto the thing, and we're going through this like little ditch. I remember this lady was like, I dropped my water bottle. She was like behind us. And I like turned around and looked like this, and this horse, the only thing I remember was looking at like the blue sky and then like looking up, and I like landed in the bridge and knocked the wind out of me, Shit. And so it didn't have to be that hard,
But it had to be probably for you, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it had to be.
It didn't have to be that hard, but for you.
For me, that's what I needed.
That's
and,
what you needed.
So many now after training so many horses over the years, just like wild Mustangs and all the things I've done. It's not that way anymore. I have a relationship with them that is profound.
Did you basically have to crash into it to then kind of reconstruct it, and now you're walking into it basically professionally trying to figure out these
One
horses?
guy, actually, an old cowboy, like who was a mentor to me, is like, this doesn't have to be this way. You know? He's like, there's a different way. And, he started really, teaching me and on the journey of creating my foundation that I have now.
So when is this, when is this idea of these horses and this journey you're going on with these horses and these criminal shyster people, which is great. I love that. It's like they have their place sometimes.
They have their place. Listen, I'm thankful for those guys. I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't met those crooks.
There's always a need. You're going through this process trying to figure out fear. I guess fear is familiar. That's a great thing to feel survival mode familiar to you, but in a different context now. It's more focused, more purposeful on this animal that you're trying to figure out.
Yeah.
When does that can turn into like well, I think this is my next thing. Like what was that moment like?
Well, I had some friends that were like hurting, and I brought them out, and I did like a trip with them in the mountains.
When you say they're hurting,
team guy buddy and a special forces buddy of mine had gotten shot.
What's their pain like? Like, what is their
isolation in the basement? Didn't come out for 6 months. Taliban's coming. This is CIA's watching them. All the things. Alcohol.
So people, for people
pills.
that don't know what that's like. Self-isolation is one of the first kind of symptoms of somebody suffering from the basic problem of reintegration to a society after going through a war type setting. I guess is kind of like the way I kind of look at it. These people won't understand. Like, they weren't there. Like, what the fuck am I going to talk to Courtney about? She's going to want to talk about her cats. Fuck that. I'm just going to fucking be quiet. My sister's going to try to ask me about this bullshit, and I'm trying to figure out this stuff. So we start cutting people out of our lives, basically, and we start fucking self-isolating, right?
100%.
And then you're stuck on survival mode, which has been basically your default setting for all this time out there. Now you're here. And you can't focus on the Taliban, but you can focus on that weird fucking van that's outside has been idling for a bit too much. Or that dude in the corner that seems kind of shady. Or maybe they're listening to my phone calls and it's paranoia. Basically a psychosis of a sort. Mm-hmm. And then you add pills to that or marijuana or a bunch of other fucking substances that it just fucking amps up sometimes the medicine turns into a poison if you use it too much is kind of the ways I've heard it.
Yeah.
So you have friends like that who are struggling. And they reach out to you or you reach out to them.
They reached out to me. As a matter of fact, my buddy's wife reached out to me and knew I was like working with horses. And so I...
Can I send you this motherfucker?
Well, they were my homies, So they came up and we had like, the worst experience ever, basically. We spent like 8 days or 10 days or something in the backcountry. And man, it was snowing and the horses were tough and we had like minimal experience and we're grizzly bears and all the things that happen out where we live in the mountains with horses. And man, when we got done we had like,
grizzly bears.
Oh yeah,
that's we killed and ate all the animals that could kill you here in Mexico. Maybe there's a few jaguars running around, so but a grizzly bear, like fuck
yeah.
So you have your guys out there.
Yeah, we have an incredible experience. Like that's when I started realizing that I had basically been getting it all wrong, and that it's ultimately struggle that gives everything in life value and teaches us about who we are as individuals. And so, people ask me like, they think that there's some kind of like business plan or some kind of thing or some kind of marketing scheme to get to where I am and all this stuff. And it's not. It's been my own personal journey to free myself from myself.
Yeah.
It's ultimately, my life had become just orders of magnitude of my own inner conversations with myself.
So you take these guys out there, you say you talk about it being like a very hard situation and experience for them. I remember going through my own shit and people wanted to take me out doing a fucking orchard somewhere and meditate or some bullshit like that, which is, it's functional. But for somebody that like us that are hardwired to do crazy shit in crazy places and run around and do all these things, all of a sudden be put into a cage of a sort.
See, I'm there now, which is interesting that you said that because I'm there. If you had come to me and said, hey, I want to take you out to an orchard and we're going to like meditate.
Yeah.
I would have
You weren't
probably
ready.
attacked you.
You weren't-
Like,
you
I
weren't
don't
ready
know.
for-
I would have attacked you.
You weren't ready for that shit.
It's a demon. Like, but now if you said to me, hey, let's go out to an orchard meditate, I'd be like, great, let's go.
But
Can we eat the fruit?
yeah, but you probably couldn't have done that as soon as you got back though.
No. I had to go through the hero's journey, right? I had to come back home. See, experiences are vehicles that lead us to the truth of who we are. And so, but we become the victims of experience. See, we give all experience feeling, right? So for instance, you know, I could look at the ocean and I could sit there and be like, this morning I was watching the sunrise. I sat out there and was watching the waves. I'm like, the ocean is absolutely beautiful. And so it is. Or I could look at the ocean and say, what if I went in there and drowned, or there's sharks in there that rip me apart and I'm afraid of the same ocean? So it is.
Yeah.
See, it's always us. So we look at all experiences and then we're the ones that place feelings on them and then they reflect back on us and then we judge the experience.
That's a beautiful way to gotta think about it.
And so what I started realizing was like, ultimately, like, we're here in life to participate in creativity. And you're always creating something positive or you're creating something negative, but it's always you. And we're governed by our free will. And so I was the victim of all my experiences, my choices, my stuff, my marriage, my relationship, everything. But ultimately, it was just me. And to get to that point, it takes two key ingredients. It takes pressure and time, because that's what got you there.
But pressure, no. I don't want pressure. You don't want pressure. So you're taking these guys out there to adding the element of pressure and also an extended amount of time out there working with you and horses, basically. There's danger there. All their bullshit doesn't matter because there's grizzly bears trying to eat your fucking horses and you.
The horse-human relationship can't be understated. It's the predator-prey relationship. And so they reflect back who you are in the most honest way. Horses do. And they teach you about what you're not saying.
Okay.
And so they do that because they're designed to run away from us.
Yeah.
That's their total design of every living thing.
Yeah, the bolt.
Mm-hmm.
So you're out there with your friends, figuring shit out, hardship, suffering. But there's a flavor to that they're probably savoring, and probably you're seeing some of that, some of the changes that kind of brought into who they were before they got there, and now you're there with them out there in the hills, fucking tired as shit, but smiling, probably bullshitting around a campfire, and laughing maybe is what I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, the program has changed and evolved as I've grown and evolved as a person, and so today it's 41 days long.
Now, 41 days for somebody, that's a lot. And like for somebody like me, my experiences, somebody says, Ed, we're going to take you this 41-day program so you can figure some shit out. It's like, fuck, that's too long. What are we going to be doing out there? That's scary. I don't want to be alone with my fucking self for 2 days trying to figure my shit out.
It takes pressure and time.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. Like, that's scary as fuck for some. If you asked me that shit probably 4 years ago, I would say 40. That's too long. That's too long with myself.
I think the greater 41 days in the scope of your life. Let's say we live 30,000 days, right? So until you're about 80.
Yeah.
And 41 days is just a tiny little window. When it took, think about my situation, right? Would it take 15 years to get to that place? And then I'm not willing to give up 41 days to do some work to kind of figure things out. Because obviously what I'm doing is not working.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're
stuck in cycle. When people get stuck in cycles, for me, it was I'm just going to stop drinking. I'll smoke weed to figure shit out, to calm myself down. It worked for him. Why doesn't it work for me? Well, I'm hiding behind weed now. It's turning into a problem too. Oh, well, let me do this. And you start looking for solutions for other people, but then somebody presents something like you, like a program. Let's dedicate 40 some days to you and figure some shit out. It's a scary thing to ask somebody. If you think about some of the people suffering from some of the issues we're talking about, being stuck on survival mode means time. There's no time. There's no time. People are running. How are you gonna cage me up for this amount of time?
They got to rewire their brain. I kind of there's 50,000 organizations for veterans in North America, And between 2012 and the end of 2020, we spent $92 billion on that. And Duke University released a study 4 weeks ago. Suicide rates have been underreported by 37% in North America, right? So you're looking at, well, it was every 64 minutes. But I don't know, what 37% looks like, and I haven't gone that deep in those numbers yet, but I will, because I've been saying for a long time, I'm like, between 2005 and the end of 2020, 155,000 guys have killed themselves in a war where 7,000 died.
Yeah.
And there's 1,500 amputees. 7,000. That's 350 a year for 20 years. That's insane. And so you're talking about a pandemic of suicide, right? Well, there's 50,000 organizations out there. There's 50,000 of them. What are we doing?
Yeah.
We're helping people to death. We're helping them so much that they die.
Yeah.
Right. We've taken so much of the key ingredients that we need to restore the dignity of the human experience away from those people, those individuals, in an effort to help them, that they never learn to help themselves. And in turn, they become parasitic on institutions. Like, it would be like saying this, like, if you look at your wife and you think, do I love you, or do I only love you because I want to feel love back?
Yeah.
And so in turn, they fail you. And then you judge them because you want them to do something that you yourself can't produce or currently not producing for yourself. And so you go to these institutions, right? There's this organization, look at shooting marmots, getting drunk, riding around on side by sides, or going tubing, or going deep sea fishing with vets and drinking beers and all the things, like all this stuff. It's an industrial complex, is what it is, that has billions and billions and billions of dollars in it, and it doesn't behoove people to fix the problem. See, the problem is an ancient problem.
Yeah.
It's old.
It's as old as time.
Old as time.
As old as time.
This isn't new. What's changed is that our approach to what it means to have autonomy and creative ability in our lives. Like, what does that mean for the individual? If we're here, in my belief, to participate in creativity, our choices terraform the world. Everything is always a thought first.
Yeah.
Right? So
it's a direct ancestor. Every action is just a thought.
Just a thought, right? So before anything occurs, it's a thought first. So basically what I'm experiencing in my life is from the use or misuse of my own inner conversations with myself.
Yeah.
Like, who are you talking to? You know what? That Betty, I'm gonna, that bitch, all these years, 15 years, hey, kids, stop. Next thing you know,
yeah.
Right? What did I do?
Yeah.
You just had a conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
And you lost.
Yeah.
Right? You talked to the parasite, as they would say.
So you take this experience with your friends. You start a program.
Yeah.
Can you talk specifically about this program that you started?
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I've got to do podcasts, and I've been around and shared like stuff, over the years, and I look back at the person that I was when I started it.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I really started because I was trying to help myself.
Oh yeah.
I was completely, because I think about the guys that came. I remember there was like the second or third year I had it. I didn't know how much pressure it took, because I'm a person that can withstand a lot, and I think it's just my nature. And so I used to go, I didn't know how much pressure it took. And I used to crush people. Okay.
Yeah.
Crush them. I'd put them on the horses. Right. I remember we did like a 150-mile ride with these dudes. Right. Horses were lame or dragging. Guys were sobbing. I would ride all through the night. Sometimes, because I'm like, I got to get these guys past these combat experiences. Right? But really, it was just me.
Yeah.
And I was just on my own journey. And it changed their life.
Yeah, but
it crushed them in an unnecessary way. And so I started beginning to understand like what pressure and time looked like. And so
basically that was the clay that you were trying to start.
That was the clay.
That was the clay.
That was the clay. And I was the clay and the potter at the same time, because I was really running from myself. Like, at the time, I don't know where I would be if it wasn't for horses and the mountains and all the experiences I've had over all these years. But today the program's 41 days long, and it's 41 days of no hot showers. It's 41 days of meditation, breath work, 41 days of sauna, 41 days of working out, 500 to 600 miles on your horses, 2 Lakota sweat lodges. You walk 80, 90 miles to meals. There's no dairy, no cheese, no honey, no sugar, no juice.
It's
right?
hard.
No orange juice, nothing.
For people that want to think that that is hardship, that is honesty. That's a physical honesty. That's not hardship.
It's just a physical. It's an honesty, and then so you live in a wall tent. You have an outhouse. You take cold showers. You start to live like a warrior monk.
For me, like I haven't been through that program. It sounds fucking amazing. I want to figure that out probably one time in my life. But
You should come.
We'll figure that out. I like horses. Like I know how to ride, but I'm probably not some of the dangerous horses. We'll figure it out.
We don't have the dangerous ones. I got to figure that part out early on. Right?
But comfort is a coping mechanism when we hide behind some of these things. I'll hide behind my air-conditioned house, and I'll fucking hide behind my fruity pebbles or whatever the fuck I'm gonna have for cinnamon toast crunch. I'll hide behind a beer. I'll hide behind. Okay, I'll go do this retreat out there and take the Navy SEAL experience, but I'm going to go back to my hotel, and then we're going to probably hit the Wingstop or something like that afterwards. I think what you're describing is, in the past, talking to some of the Kumeyaay Indians that I grew up around, or some of the researching some of the native histories here in Mexico. They have this. They used to have this big thing about the coming home of people, or when they would go off to battle, and what that was like. And you would imagine it was a celebration or a party or of something of a banquet or excesses, but it wasn't. It was basically a scaling down or a calming down. So you would feed the warriors to go out and fight, but when they come back, they would have to lead them down, slow down, chill out. Isolation was part of it for some of these cultures. Some of these guys coming back from wherever they did. You talk about sweat lodges and what sweat lodges do to people. People that haven't experienced a sweat lodge. Can you explain what a sweat lodge is as far as a tool and why you're using it as a tool for people? Yeah, I mean, that's something that once again came into my life, and as a part of my journey had a profound impact on me. And the sweat lodge we have is a Lakota sweat lodge. From the Lakota Sioux, from the Cheyenne Indian Reservation. Those folks, they have 7 sacred rites, which were left carried on by a guy named Black Elk, who was a chief, and he was given these rites of purification, which essentially is the dissolving of the self, right? So like Jesus, 40 days and 40 nights was to dissolve the self so he could get a clearer view of the creator, right, for what he had to do next. Plato going into the tomb of Cheops or whatever for 7 days and coming out and being reborn, or the Eleusinian mysteries or whatever it is. This is basically the shamanic journey of people going into the underworld and coming back. Coming back, right? Which the underworld, I believe, is your ego. Yeah, definitely. It's your total ego. It's your the underworld is not like it's your own ego, which is. It's its own mountain. So for people that kind of, some people out there might not know what we're talking about, but for somebody like us coming with that much amount of noise and voices and shit like that, we drown it out by listening to music, drinking, being out there watching movies and all that shit, and all of a sudden you're in a sweat lodge where you can't escape, you can't fucking run, you can't. Hey, can I put on my bud earbuds? No, fuck no. You just sit down. Well, I have to withstand. This is what's going. Then you go into the underworld. They have the Anipi Wakan, which is the sacred purification ceremony, and then there's 4 windows, where the first window you go through, kind of takes you from the physical to the spiritual. That's kind of when you have the mind virus, right? That's going on inside of your head, where you're like, what am I doing here? Oh my God, I can't see this. You can't see anything. And there's a lot of singing and chanting and drumming goes on, and the heat is very intense, obviously inside of there. And what happens is you can't run away from yourself. No, there's no That's escape. What it is. It's your own self. There's no escape. No. And specifically in a place, it's dark. There's I don't know specifically, you explain that the drumming sound, but it does something that
The vibrations.
the vibration, the sound, it basically turns into like a baseline for your sensory. It's there's sensory overload and then there's sensory deprivation, and somewhere in the middle, that's what that kind of experience is, where you can't escape.
Yeah.
But you go in, right? Are people freaked out in that position?
Yeah, well, they do 2 of them, one halfway through the program. So by the time they get through the first week of the program.
What's that first week like?
It's intense. So the first week is like, once again, there's no hot. It's cold in Montana.
Yeah.
All right. So in the summertime in June, it's
no heating
40
out there?
degrees.
You don't have a heater out there, like one of those heating lamps out there or something like that? No?
It's just cold. And so the morning ritual, you talked about ritual, and I think that's one thing that's missing with veterans is, well, 2 things. One is that they have no ritual anymore. The ritual is to go hang out with your buddies and talk about what you did 20 years ago. Or you have, you have no code that you live by. There's no code.
There's no unifying code.
You don't live by any code at all. You just, and so identity projection is the enemy of growth of mankind. And so these guys show up, they've got identities. We all do, right? And we serve those identities. And we hate them. We serve them. We give them our time and our energy. We dress up as our identities.
Yeah.
We go out and we buy products to reinforce our identities. Oh, look at that guy's this guy's that girl's this, right? So we spend our life and our time working to buy products to reinforce the identities that we hate, can't get away from when it's us. And so that first week is really powerful because the guys are living in wall tents. They got an outhouse. They got to walk 1.2 miles down just to meals. So they'll walk 80, 90 miles just to meals back and forth in 4:30 in the morning.
And that's a ritual. That's a part of
it's just silence. They're in the ranch. They're in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing out there. There's no lights. They're just in the mountains. And so they'll walk down alone. And then, it's about reconnecting and realigning with your mind, your body, and your spirit. So we got a fitness program. They do, time in the sauna every day. Cold plunge, and then cold showers, workout, meditation, breath work. And then at 7 o'clock in the morning, that starts the day. So by the time 7 o'clock in the morning rolls around, they've already lived a lifetime, right? And then it's all horsemanship, the horse-human relationship. So they'll learn about that. They're given a horse and a mule. They'll go through some of the best training, I think, in the country as it pertains to horses. The level of training these guys get is unbelievable. Wow. So by the 3rd day, they're learning to lope, they're learning to rein. They're really learning the aspects of reining, and that just continues on through the whole program. And so then they'll head into the wilderness for 7 days into the backcountry. Then
we're all the 7 is there. Cool.
Yes.
7 days out.
Yep. So then they'll come back, and then they'll do a sweat lodge. And they'll continue the horsemanship. So they'll learn farriers, blacksmithing.
Okay, I don't see any individualized thing. And you're describing everything. Where's the individual in all of this?
Yeah.
What about me? Is anybody going to treat me special? Am I going to be
no special
treated differently? Can I get my me time?
There's 49,999 organizations if you want to get treated special. You owe yourself. We get this idea that the world owes us something.
Yeah.
And that, the military owes us something, or the VA owes us something, or
that's an interesting thing.
You owe yourself.
For me, there was a struggle when I ended my job, that career I had, where, I felt like, okay, it's thankless. Nobody, there was no, parade or, hey, thank you for everything. It was me resigning and leaving. And there was no clear delineated ending to that. And also, my job was a cop in Mexico. We're all corrupt. We're all pieces of shit. We're all on the take. We're all horrible people. I've been called everything from a torturer, a sicario for one of any cartel out here, all of that negative shit, obviously dumped on top of you. And that feeling of just basically, what the fuck? What did I did this? Why would I do this again? Or why did I do this? And this whole aspect of abandonment in a way, because when that job ends, the phone calls stop coming in, and nobody's, you don't matter anymore. Basically, you have this weird abandonment type situation going on with you. But the thanklessness of it. And the feeling like, hey, somebody should be doing something for me, or what's the reward? Why do I feel like shit after this job? You know, that's an interesting aspect of it. The feeling of what do I get? You know.
Yeah, I think. Do you guys have the suicide rates and stuff like that here? Or is
Yeah,
like,
I was talking to you about the fact that I had 30 people come through in the generation of that I came out of with. There's 2 of us left.
suicide or killed by
9,
violence?
at least 9 of them were eaten by the job. You know, that they killed themselves basically with their own guns. You know, that's another aspect of it. I struggle with it sometimes when I think back on some of them taking their lives, you know, because you go through different emotions when people do that. Why did you do that? Why didn't you say shit? You know, you feel like a weird betrayal and almost anger towards them.
Yeah.
That's an easy fucking thing to do. Well, that's not easy. It's not easy, you know. I remember one of them left a letter behind saying that that there's actually a lot of courage in giving up. And that fucking stuck with me for a while.
Yeah.
You know, the access to a firearm, the ability to use it, and them using it on other people, and then the ease of it just being turned on yourself and not being turned into a release for some people. You know, going through all my own bullshit. And, you know, so I thought about it, you know. I think everybody has, you know. You know, going through that, through that process.
There's all kinds of ways to kill yourself too. I think we always look at like the violent means where you shoot yourself or you hang yourself, but you kill yourself by
drinking
or pills or psych meds,
self-destruction,
or just porn or whatever it is. There's all kinds of suicide. Food.
But the pain of just living, staying, you know.
Yeah.
There's a book I read, Miyazaki book. It's a character in that book that tries to commit suicide, and she puts herself in a car and she tries to kill herself by ramming it into a wall. And she forgets to take off her seatbelt. So she arrives. Car gets wrecked. Fucking wall gets all destroyed. She wakes up in the hospital with her dad next to her, screaming at her, "What the fuck did you do to the car? Now I have to pay it back. I'm in debt now." And also the people that own that wall are now charging us for the wall. And she's such a nice person that she can't kill herself till all the debts are paid back. So she lingers. I remember when my daughter was born. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. But reading that part of that book, I remember feeling like her.
Yeah.
Like how that's not an option, you know. It is, you know, it's like you say it's not just a gun, you know. I try to kill myself with alcohol. You know, a lot of people out there that have met me on the road over the, I don't know, 6 years that I've been out there doing training and teaching people have, you know, witnessed some of that. You know, go after a class of me basically reliving some of the traumatic situations that I've been through the training people how to not get into that shit.
Yeah.
And then getting a line of margaritas in front of you, you know. It's just a very slow bullet.
Listen, we go back and forth about like, well, there's all kinds of suicide, right?
Yeah.
So one's fast and one's slow, but you know, what we're experiencing, like, you know, on the other side of the fence is like, you have these huge institutions, right? Like you have these huge amounts of money,
Yeah.
and nothing's working, and you think about
basically the amount of money that you say is being invested in, and the amount of organizations out there you should see some sort of reflection in the amount that the rates dropping but that's not what we see.
No, and I think like one of the things for me that's like been shocking to me is the amount of pharmaceutical drug use that are prescribed to guys. You know, where I had a guy this year that was on 32 pills a day. He left on nothing. He had another guy that was on 13.
Yeah.
Another guy that was on 17.
And then when you talk about these pills, these are basically antipsychotic medications.
Psychotics, psychotropics, and then they cure with all the side effects and all the things.
So you have to, I was on 5 types of medication.
Right.
And I'm not currently on none.
Nothing. And the thing is like I've never taken those things, like, but I'm not judging.
I'm not saying that isn't for some it helped in some cases, but I remember taking one
the
pill.
Suicide rate is gotta be, if you look at like, what is it, 3 out of 6 vets that enter the VA leave on those meds, and then you see suicide rates every 64 minutes.
Yeah, that's insane.
That's an insane number. It's an insane number. And so you just wonder, like,
is it actually is it actually help? So again, I remember getting exposed to some medication and it helped for initially. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, but I don't feel like myself.
That's exactly what I hear.
So let me go back and this will help you feel more, or let's readjust this. And I'm like, and then you have the now current effect of marijuana, like weed. Ed, weed is a harmless. It's fine. You can take it. It's okay. It doesn't hurt anybody. It'll make you feel fine. It does, if you use it as a medication.
Yeah.
But if you use it as a blanket, it turns into psychosis.
Yeah.
And it makes shit worse, you know? And it's a process where you're like, if you're somebody like I am, you're trying to figure out your own way out, your own kind of climbing your own way out, trying to figure shit out for yourself, taking advice from people that you assume know their shit, or going to a doctor, getting a prescription. It's a contradictory voices of all types and kinds saying different things about different solutions for your problem. And it's taken me a long time to get to a place where I'm not taking anything, basically. You know?
Here's the thing about life, and that I think people are missing, is that we're not here to feel better. We're not here to feel better. We're here to transcend.
No, we're here to feel better about ourselves and be. Yeah. No,
we're here to transcend. We're not here to feel better. We are here to learn about who we are through experiences that are vehicles for us.
Is this purgatory?
No, because here's the thing: unless you make it that.
To you, yeah, that's an interesting.
Because you make your own purgatory by the things that, it's the Lakota tale of 2 wolves, right? You have 2 wolves, and they're both exactly the same, and you bring those wolves together, and they're going to fight each other. Which one wins?
Yeah.
The one you feed.
I remember Jacob's Ladder, that movie. You remember that movie?
Jacob's Ladder.
That's Danny Aiello is in that movie, and he talks about when you're in purgatory. People think that they're in purgatory. And that the devils are ripping them apart. But at the end of that process, they realize that they're just angels setting you free. Mm-hmm. But it all depends on,
Right. We're not here to feel better. So it's like if you go in there and you got problems going on and you're like, I need to feel better, you're wrong, because that's actually where it begins.
Yeah.
That's what I found out all these years and all these guys. Hundreds of guys, like, in my own journey, is realizing that, like, we are not here to feel better. That these experiences that once were tearing me down are now building blocks of growth in my life. And so
that's what you're trying to do with your program, basically.
Yeah, I just put them in I don't teach them. I put them in situations and circumstances where they learn about who they are. Because like I said, we're here to participate in creativity. We can't help but create. Look around the room. All this was created by what? Thoughts. And so that's the danger of feeding into things, right? So as you, that's why the natives believe that, when you diagnose somebody, you gave them a curse, and you curse them with a disease that they didn't have. But what happens is that
that's a powerful thing.
It's a curse, and you look at them and you say, you have PTSD, and the person's like, so I do.
I remember that, PTSD diagnosis. You have PTSD, and I'm like, oh. Then I research it, and I'm all of these things.
Well,
now.
Then you reinforce your own correctness. So your mind goes, oh, I got that. Oh, I got that.
So
that seems like
so I'm justified in avoiding this.
Mm.
So I'm justified in not doing that. So I'm justified in hiding.
Yeah. You reinforce your own correctness.
Fuck.
That's how it works. That's how the mind works. It reinforces your own correctness. So we get told something that you have something. Okay, you have PTSD. You're like, really? Like, I don't know. You start doing the research. Next thing you know, it pops up. Trouble sleeping? A little bit. Well, maybe you ever yell? Yeah, kinda. Like next thing you know, I've got PTSD.
Yeah.
And so you do.
Yeah.
It's you. So you make an agreement with it.
Yeah.
And then you begin to act as a character
of this. This is your identity.
I meet guys like, oh, I'm a vet. And I'm like, what do you do? And like, oh, I'm a vet. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not a thing.
Yeah.
It's not a verb. You're not veteraning yourself around. What does that mean? You know, we ask the guys a question. We're like, what does it mean to be a veteran? You know, we ask guys, and you hear them say all these things, you know, like loser. Like you just hear them say all this stuff. And I'm just like listening to them. I'm like, then why are you going around acting like you're a vet if this is what you think it is?
Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting thing.
It's always us, you know, like if the whole world could just stop right now, right? And realize that it's us, everything would change in an instant. It's in an instant. But, you know, we are constantly going outside of ourselves to seek these generator systems to heal us, to give us the advice that we need, to take us to the next place, when really it's about unlocking what is already inside of you. It's not about putting anything new into you. It's only about awakening what is asleep in you. That's the difference. The difference is like, you know, I didn't set out on this journey because I want to have like be the cool vet and have all this stuff and all check me out, like great, like follow me. Like I don't care about any of those things. What I look about is realize that one person can change the world by changing themselves. Because we're here to free ourselves from ourselves. It's not happening outside of us. If you need to feel love.
But I want to blame somebody though. I don't want it to be about me. Can I blame the government about my shit?
Right, because that caters to your ego. Right? It caters to the ego because the real hard work deep down inside is, deep down inside, that's not going to help you. But you go against yourself. So you create your own polarity. You create a war inside of yourself with yourself because the mind says, yeah, you know, maybe take a little bit of those things. You deserve it. You're going to take the edge off. Right. But the inside of your soul says, this doesn't quite feel right. So then you create your own war and then you live in hell.
Yeah.
That's purgatory because you put yourself there. You put yourself in the in-between world.
I remember I remember when I was like really bad. I was in California, Fallbrook. There was a Circle K near the place that was hosted by a family in Fallbrook. There was a Circle K that I could walk to, you know, I couldn't drive. And I bought 3 cans of Foster's. That was my fucking thing.
Australian for beer.
They hate the fact that they said in Australia they say that's not Australian for beer, but I don't care. It's Australian for beer. Fuck it. You know, I remember I would buy 3 cans and fall asleep. That was my thing. I didn't want to get drunk. I didn't want to have fun. I just wanted to fall asleep. And when people talk about sleeping, you know, drunk sleep is death. Basically, you don't dream about anything. You're just fucking gone. Right.
That's why it's called spirits.
Yeah. Fuck.
Wine and spirits.
Yeah.
Because your spirit leaves your body when you're drunk in that state.
Completely leaves your body.
Spirits.
I would go there regularly, probably every 3 days. You know, was my kind of cycle. And I remember just going there, and there was no cans left in the aisle. You know. I walked over to the lady. He's like, "Hey, there's no more Foster's cans left." She said, "Yo, you finished them all. Like you finished them all."
Oof.
I felt so horribly bad about that, you know? Like she was disgusted by the fact that I finished all those cans. Yeah. I didn't feel like myself. There was a moment there when I was drunk as fuck, and that moment there, I realized that it was a really big conflict between who I was and what I was doing with that alcohol consumption. And it was hell. It's a sudden realization, like, holy shit, all the people around me have pitchforks and everything's on fire. That's a very lonely place to be.
Alcoholism within the veterans community is profound.
Yeah.
It's profound, and people give it a pass, and
They celebrate it sometimes.
yeah, they got their own whiskey bottles, they got their own stuff, they got the things, they got the stuff. But here's the thing: is like it's killing. You got to think about the off-label suicides, right? Like so. The suicides that like guys die from alcoholism. I had a guy that came through the program whose brother was in the army and killed himself. They found him dead in a hotel room with 4 locos, and you know, we always think about suicide. The person went and hung themselves, went and did this, but it's like it's alcohol.
Yeah.
Like we don't obviously have any alcohol in our program whatsoever. We don't even have sugar. All right, you're not even. You don't even have hot showers. We're not giving people alcohol, but you go to these other people, they're pounding guys with alcohol, right? That's what you do. You show up, hey brothers, you tell the stories, you pour a drink, and it's like
I understand. Well, for me, like, if people want to drink, that's
your own business.
That's their own
Listen, I don't
business.
mind. I'll have a beer or whatever, but it's not a factor in my life.
For me, I remember when I said I'm not going to drink anymore.
Yeah.
I locked myself in, basically, and it was
Hell.
And
But you did it.
I remember talking to a doctor afterwards because there was a crisis midway. And what the fuck are you doing, Ed? Yeah. This is the only drug that'll kill you if you leave it. And it is fucking true. It is fucking true. That's legit one of the only drugs out there that'll kill you if you stop taking it.
It's just brutal.
And again, for me, the whole process was, I can't sustain it. It's unsustainable for me. I know I'm going to die if I continue doing this shit, and I have things to do, and I need to live a bit more. So I remember letting go of that. But like you say, it's out there, it's around, it's everywhere, and it's offered. It's soothing for some people. It's also cultural, you know. I remember the first time I went to Kentucky, I got a bottle of Buffalo Rye.
Yeah,
as a welcoming gift. That and a gun, which is God bless Kentucky. But you see it out. Yeah, I get what you say when I said veteran communities out there, and it's used as a prop.
It's encouraged. It's a part of the culture, and the culture has to change because there's no code amongst veterans. There's no code like, hey, look at what does it mean to be a warrior? I think that's like a question that people should sit down and figure out what the definition of that is. Like if I ever went to war ever again, I would go out of love.
That would be you wouldn't go out for retribution?
No, I would only go out of love. And when if I was ever to do that, you would have to nail me to the ground. Because true courage is the absence of fear, and fear is the absence of love. And so to have true courage, like Alexander the Great riding up 10,000 men ready to fight, and he's just alone. And he just rides up early in the morning, and people are like, oh, fuck, and they just run away.
Yeah.
Right? What is that? See, that's essentially, that is courage, which is a sign of your connection to the spirit, to the creator. Creator is not of fear. It's of courage. And so you can't have courage unless you have love. And so for me, like, yes, I went out of fear. I went out of anger. I went out of retribution. All of the things in my life I went out initially. It was all, but deep down inside, I had fear.
Yeah.
So you got to purge yourself of all fear, like the fear of being taken advantage of, the fear of not having money, the fear of lack, every single fear that you could ever imagine, you have to purge yourself of. And then when you get purged of that, then you come into a oneness. Like you read about like the Book of Five Rings, or you read about, these were not men of riding around with jacked up trucks, like shooting out of the windows, like talking about like Iraq in 2005 or something. Like these men did art, and they held children, and they taught, they were teachers, they honored the land, they had gardens, they honored their bodies. And yes, they were fierce on the battlefield. The only way they could be that fierce was because they were balanced within themselves. And so, the mind, unfortunately, rules all aspects of the human, but the mind is just a tool for the heart.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that we ignore the intuitive mind and are ruled by the intellectual mind. And the intellectual mind leads us into all forms of chaos and destruction. It's the four horsemen of the apocalypse. It's the individual. It's not mythological horses. It's when you're ruled by the intellect, black horse, or you're ruled by emotions, the red horse, or you're ruled by material things, the white horse. And the pale horse represents all those things in balance. So behold, the pale horse cometh. Why? He's balanced, not afraid.
Yeah.
You can't scare someone that's afraid, right? You're not going to defile and dishonor yourself when you're in that place of unity and balance within yourself. And to me, that is what needs to be restored within all of humanity. But if we're talking about soldiers or veterans or police officers or people in secretive units that are doing all kinds, whatever it is, we have to realize that the freedom from ourselves lies within ourselves. And in our choices, we find freedom from everything. You could choose something different. Human beings terraform the planet with their choices. Human beings, it's human beings that can stand up and say, no, I refuse that. Or they can say, yes, I accept that. And when we begin to get into alignment, and that's what the 41 days ultimately is about, is we get into alignment. We get all the shit out of us. The drugs, the alcohol, the self-loathing, the codependent relationships, the identity.
Self-loathing, self-soothing. Self-soothing thing is like that shit is a drug too. Sugar, carbs.
I remember one time I felt so much pressure. I was on my motorcycle, and I felt so much pressure, from so many different directions. I couldn't even understand it. And I remember I was yelling in my helmet. I'm a big motorcycle guy and ride all the time. And I just remember I just started accelerating my bike as fast as I could. And I just saw the side of this building. And I'm just going. And I was just going, and I just was I was just feeling that. Right?
Yeah.
I could just go right now. Right? And then all of a sudden I came back into myself. And I realized that, and I was like, that was my mind. It was your mind.
Yeah.
I realized it because it wasn't my heart. My heart, the intuitive mind, your heart stopped me.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it was like, no, Micah. And then I just...
You fell back into yourself.
I fell back into myself, but I understand what it means to have pain and hurt. But we're not here to feel good in life. It's not about feeling good. See, we're sold the idea that we have to feel good about everything. We're here to transcend the experiences that were gifted to you. The experiences that you were given in life, Ed, Micah, whoever, are gifts. They're gifts. They just show up as nightmares.
Yeah.
And it's up for us to transcend them, to remember them as part of us. So we're not living in these separate compartmentalized boxes. We are in a state of balance. And to get there, you have to do the work.
It's a midnight of the soul.
Midnight of the soul. That's what this 41 days, look at, is the midnight of the soul. It is. And you're around complete and total strangers. You don't know. You're put in very high intense situations. You're going through rituals. You're going through, your horses, mountains, environmental challenges, sweat lodges, sleeping outside. I mean, just all the things. And then finally, you
can't hide.
You can't hide.
Can I just stay back? Can I stay in my tent for a bit? Mm-hmm. You can't hide. You can't hide.
Once you have awareness, though, and you choose that same cup, you do create hell. Because you sinned against your own self, So that's when we wouldn't know love unless there was hate, and we wouldn't know hot unless there was cold. We wouldn't know. How would we know what we are if there was nothing to reflect that back onto us?
Yeah,
there would be nothing. There'd just be spacious. There would be no polarity. There would be no third dimensional space. So we need to step on the thorn and then ow. But if it wasn't there, I'd just step on the thorn and just go right through me.
Some weird bar in Acapulco I read on a wall. The midnights of the soul will lead you to the middays of the heart. Mm. Right?
That sums it up.
But
The ancients knew. The Indians knew. The natives knew. The natives here at Mexico, like they knew. And the reason why they were exterminated and their traditions and their ways and all the things were exterminated because we can't have people knowing what I'm talking about.
yeah, no, that's
Because
dangerous.
It's dangerous
Free
because
thinkers are
then
dangerous.
that's the most dangerous thing. They killed Jesus, not because Jesus had a nuke or
He
knew
did in a way.
karate.
He did. He had a pretty big spiritual duke.
Yeah, exactly. He was going to say something because everything's a thought first. He was going to say, reject them. That's it. Think about it. The whole let there be light, the word came first. So if you say, yeah, I've got PTSD and my dad beat the shit out of me and I'm this and that, and I've got this and I've got diagnosis and I see images and I do this and I do this, and so you do. And so you are.
Yeah.
Because the word, you could just walk down the street and just see some guy and be like, you're a fat piece of shit. And then just walk away. You've changed the entire trajectory of his whole existence.
With a word.
With a word, because guess what? He's different now. And he may walk and say, oh, I'll never listen to that guy again. Who was that crazy guy? Then he gets on the phone call. Do. Hey, what's up, Bob? You'll never believe what happened to me. And while he's talking, he looks up, loses control of the car, hits a telephone pole. He's dead.
Shit.
Well, he wouldn't have been making that phone call if you hadn't said that to him.
Yeah.
Or maybe he goes home and he's like, I am disgusting. And you know what? I'm going to lose the weight and I'm going to change. Right? It could go either way.
It could go either way.
But it's you.
It's you.
It's your choices. You cannot fall out of your choices. If I just pick that cup up right now and drop it on the ground and it breaks, I can never fall out of my choice to do that. Sorry about this badass cup, but I broke it. Yep. Okay, so what happens next? You throw me out or I sweep it up, right? It's just a series of choices. And so you get presented.
Or you can put it back together with gold like Japanese do. You know?
Exactly.
Fucking rebuild those cups.
You could do anything. And this is what we're missing. You know, you look at the world is on the edge of just total chaos because we're entering into a state of entropy where we're disassociating from all of the things that held us together, right?
Yeah, there's
fracturing.
You know, this. I heard this from the Kumeyaay. Kumeyaay is a tribe that is native here in the region. I grew up around a lot of them. They would talk about an amputation. La gente está sufriendo es que le cortaron algo. People are suffering because they cut something off them. And what did they amputate? Each other. You know, we used to say goodnight to each other on the campfire, and now we flip off the neighbor. You know,
we've severed the link.
Yeah,
the link between us. You know, if we're made in the image of the Creator, right? And so in turn, we're the infinite expressing itself through the finite, right? But we have free will. So I can create whatever we want. I can build a building or I can tear it down, right? And that's based on our choices, which is governed by our ideals. What he said right there was absolutely correct. We have severed ourselves. We have severed, imagine okay, let's just people are just going crazy right now. So let's just say in five years from now, everything's vaporized, chaos happens, and there's just two world leaders standing there. And they're like, the only ones left on the planet, two dudes.
Yeah.
And they're looking at each other and like, see, I was right. No, I was right, see? And then they look up and the last two people on Earth pick up rock and start beating each other with it, right?
Yeah.
And then one guy's left and like, see, I was right.
Yeah, I mean, if you focus on what the main issues right now are, we're heading into an election cycle in the United States right now. Identity. Like, who the fuck
The left and the right are the same thing. I tell people, I'm like, I'm not referring to individuals, but I'm referring to as a collective.
Yeah.
Right? The left and the right exist for power.
Yeah.
They exist for power. All right. So nothing ever changes, but they give you something to feed. So I got to give something to the people that like the blue and some people that like the red. I got to give the people that are the trans and I got to give the gays. Or I got to give the this and I got to give the Christians and I got to give the Muslims and I got to give the this and I got to give the that. And I got to give, and next thing you know, it's like divide and conquer.
Yeah, I mean,
You're divided among socioeconomic, gender, religion, race, haves and have-nots, money, right? So now nobody exists in any form of community together, because when you exist in community together, moving in the right direction together, that's a powerful force.
Yeah.
Imagine everybody just got together, 1,000 people right now, and said, "Hey, we're gonna turn this like dump into a garden." They would do it, right? But we can't have that.
No.
Because we're gonna tell you what you need for you, because I know what you need. And then it's like I talk to these vets. I'm like, "How did you wind up taking 32 pills?" Like, well, they said they're like, "Get me back to normal." I'm like, "Well, what's normal? What does it mean to be normal?"
Oh, shit, that's the biggest lie they tell you.
Yeah, because what's normal for someone in Uganda is not normal for someone in Miami. What's normal for a dog is chaos for a bird.
Yeah.
What's normal for a fish is chaos for an elk. So you look at all those things, right? And you start thinking about, how are we being controlled?
Yeah.
We're only being controlled because we're relinquishing the ability that we have to complete and total strangers in the illusion that they're going to make life easier for us and we'll have to do less.
Yeah.
But we actually have to do more to get the things that we think are going to make us happy. And what I'm saying is, like, let's all just stop and get back into the heart center.
I mean, I'm new to the U.S., my experience has been about almost 4 years now. And it's a great country,
Yeah.
It has a lot of issues,
Yeah.
I remember the whole aspect of who are you? Identity
Yeah.
was new to me, because here nobody gives a shit who you are. Like you never got like, "Oh, what's your faith?" Nobody asks you that here. Out there, what's your faith? What's your politics? What do you believe as far as this and that? Drugs, guns, like all these things. Like you have to conform to this specific line of who you are, or else these people won't support you, or these people won't support you. I get out of the immigration office when I got my green card, which was not an easy process. Did it legally, and
Congrats. Yeah.
And the first thing I got was a bunch of pamphlets about how to get our government money in California. I haven't taken a dime of government money since I got there. I got to the U.S. with nothing, and I now have 4 employees, and I'm doing great. The American dream is real if you work for it hard.
Yes.
I'm proof of that. But I remember the conflict of it when I got there, where I was like, "Oh, you don't have to work for it. You get it through here. Don't do that. That's stupid." They laugh at you.
Yeah.
On one end, and also on the other end, I remember a Muslim friend of mine who we had as a guest here, Yusuf. Yeah. He was like, we did his presentation somewhere, and he turned to me and like, and now my Mexican friend, who they're the bad guys now, and got it forward, like I laughed it off. It's funny.
Yeah.
But identity is such. I realized all my friends, different walks of life, it doesn't matter. None of it matters. Like,
Yes.
I judge people through their actions, obviously, and specifically like how the people around them are. Are they better for them there? That's who I look to. That's why I like follow or ask questions of. Yeah, there's a weird. Who are we? When you talk, and I say who are we because I'm part of that experiment, which is the United States. The U.S. used to be the Taliban of the 1700s.
Listen, the thing is that when you speak, like, truth has no agenda.
No.
Right? Truth has no agenda. So when you like say the truth, people who are so politically charged, I'm like, look, it's the same thing. I'm like, government should be in the business of providing opportunity.
Yeah.
That's it. Providing opportunity. But that's not the case now.
Yeah.
Now we look to them to give us things.
Yeah.
Right? And in turn, we become slaves. We fall into a form of slavery. And, I'm so thankful for my life. And I'm so thankful for the my children and the people that I have and the animals, the mountains, the stuff, the ability to help people. And I think that, like, we should start looking to each other as a community instead of looking to like an individual to save us, right? Like, and say like, oh, maybe when this guy gets in 5 years, like he's going to make my life better. Why don't you just make your life better now?
Yeah.
By changing your choices. Changing your choices. Stop looking for someone to tell you what to do and what normal looks like and how to think, and seize the opportunities that you create for yourself. And that's what government should be allowing us to do. It should be allowing us to create for ourselves. That is a beautiful thing.
It's dangerous. It's scary. You're talking about dangerous shit.
It is dangerous. Yeah, exactly. I mean,
it's dangerous shit right now.
It is.
But yeah, the program you talk about, that's basically what it is. It is it's a microcosm experiment of what you're talking about, of creating a space for people to create their own fucking way out, arming them with that ability or that know-how to be, I want to say get over their own bullshit. Yeah. But a lot of the stuff that we carry is our own bullshit.
Yep.
And once we figure out a way to climb out of our own bullshit and realize that we are, people ask me questions like, Ed, top 10 advice that you have. Like, number one, invest in people. Mm-hmm. The best investment that you can have anywhere in the world is investing in people.
Because it's all people.
Like, I can travel across, I've been to most states except Iowa. I'm sorry, Iowa. I haven't been to Iowa or Hawaii or Alaska. I'll get there. But I've seen more of this country than most Americans in 3 years. It's a great gift. I'm not alone anywhere I go, because everywhere I go, I've already invested in people in some way, shape, or form through either the classes I do, what I give out for free online, advice. People could, hey, Ed, you were very honest and open about your fucking horrible experience not drinking. That took a lot of courage. Fucking no. I'm a coward. You know why I did that? You know why I was public with my sobriety? Because I wanted other people to keep me accountable for it, because I didn't trust myself to not drink.
Listen, but here's the thing is you did it.
I did it.
And you're doing it.
But when I talk about investing in other people and figuring shit out like that, I couldn't have gotten there if I hadn't gone through that fucking destruction. Enlightenment is the crumbling away of untruth. It's not about feeling better or feeling good. It's fucking desolation. It's ripping untruth out of you. When I see the program you're doing and some of that, it's scary. Like, for somebody like me, if you were to ask me, hey, Ed, this is this program. It's 40 days. You can come out there. If you were to ask me that 3 years ago, I would have said, well, how am I going to get my booze, right?
Yeah.
I can't go. If you were to ask me that 2 years ago, well, can I take my weed with me? If you were to ask me that now, I'm like, I don't have any more excuses.
Can I bring my blanket?
Now I don't have anything. I don't have anything to I can tell myself. And I think
it's scary, because what you're talking about, it's people don't change, even though the world changes around them. They hold on to these psychological perceptions of not changing. But everything changes. Nothing lasts. Nothing lasts. So people, they want things to be different, but just to an extent.
Yeah.
And just to an extent, just kind of get there. But like what I'm talking about is like a cataclysm on your life, where you leave and you're not, even if you resist the whole thing, like, I'm going to resist the whole time for 41 days. Okay.
You're
still changed.
I'm going to hold my breath. Motherfuckers are going to hold their breath.
Yep.
It's fine. I'll get out of here and I'll just go back.
No. You can't help it. And you're going to change. And the thing is like, I tell people, I'm like, they go in the pandemic and the things and the stuff. I'm like, look at suicide is a pandemic. It's a virus that is infected.
Yeah.
Our community.
Yeah.
Is infected. And then think about like police officers, first responders, like people that are on the front lines of doing it. And what are we offering them with all these billions and billions and bazillions of dollars and think tanks and degrees and all these people? We're offering them a way to quietly go off and die.
Yeah. Yes.
That's what it is.
In a way, they're offering a path towards that.
A path towards death. Because here's the thing. It's either a slow death or a fast death, but it's a death.
Yeah.
But you can choose your way out of it. You can choose your way out of it if you're willing to truly search for truth, your own truth.
What would you tell to somebody like, myself or somebody coming out of whatever experiences they're coming from? And also, just for people out there to kind of like not focalize. I've, some of my therapy circle that I go to, there's a rodeo clown there. And there's a lady that had a horrible marriage. Dude was fucking psychotic and did a bunch of shit to her. I wouldn't trade lives with any of these people. They've lived hell themselves in their own ways. One of them destroyed his body through years of rodeo work and rodeo clowning, and the guy does this. His spine is basically a single piece, fused together. I remember specifically him. We had this conversation. Nobody kind of knew who everybody was, so everybody told their story. And he was kind of crabby, sitting next to me, is like, like this. And we would hang out, drink coffee and stuff like that. And then the story got to me, and I told my story. And he didn't talk to me after that. I felt like shit. I felt the rejection from him. Later on, I approached him outside and I asked him, like, hey, dude, like, did I do anything wrong? Did I say anything? Do you hate Mexicans or what's going on?
Yeah.
He said, you remind me that you went through what you went through and you're doing a lot with it. And I haven't done shit. And you just reminded me of that. And I can't be around you. And there's people out there suffering in different ways. It's not, you don't have to go to war to go to war.
Listen, there's some people that I met that just cowboys that have had experiences that make some of the guys that come through the program it dwarfs them.
Yeah.
I mean, hard lives, traumas, things. And the interesting thing about them is they've kind of had to just go on.
Yeah, suck it up. No,
specifically because there is no institutions for them, and that's what I mean when I say we're helping people to death.
Yeah, specifically men.
Yeah,
the quiet desperation of men. Suck it up. That whole aspect of it is also something out there. Suck it up. You're a dude.
I know you're not supposed to be like that.
Yep. No. What are you doing, Ed?
We have to re-engage, and we have to I think we're coming to a time where we're starting to rethink what it means to be a human, and I think that the conversations we're having right now are beginning to kind of people are starting to begin to kind of shuffle around and start to look at different. When guy applies to the program, he's like, I've been on 10 vacation for veterans. I'm on 15 medications, and my wife's left me. I live in my dad's basement now, and my kids won't even talk to me. They've gone out.
For somebody like that, what advice? To me, if I'm there, if you tell me 3 years ago, I'd say, fuck, what you're offering seems scary as fuck. Scary as fuck. It separates me from my hiding places. So again, scary as shit. I don't think it's for me. Maybe it's for somebody else who's more hardcore, strong. What would you say to them? What would you say to them?
The fact that they're saying that they need to
go.
That's
the right? Need to go.
That's it. I mean, because
do you think it's a leap?
Don't wait. Here's the thing: is that the past is gone, and the future's not here yet. So what if we just got rid of the past and then had the future over here, or we're just here right now, right? And the decisions that you make to get out of the choices that you've made, essentially to free yourself from your own prison that you created, you have to get into the heart. And deep down inside, when you begin to listen, you find truth, because truth is always silent. The mind always talks.
Yeah.
True truth can only be felt. It's a knowing. And so then you move from trust, and you move from all the mental constructs into knowing. And you know in your heart, you know what? If I want to change, I got to get off this couch.
Yeah.
And I got to stand up and I got to dump it down the bottle. I got to dump the bottle down the drain. I got to turn the TV off. I need to get outside. I have to begin to do things, right? So it's just little micro steps, just a little thing. You know what? It's just we try to do too many things at one time is what happens with people. This program is 41 days. So you've got 41 days and everything's built in place for you. We've got an outdoor sauna, we've got an in-ground cold plunge, we've got a whole workout
Everything's
area.
there.
Everything's there. So it's but no one's forcing you. That's what makes the
door's
program
open.
difficult.
The door's open.
You can leave.
But holy shit. Well, fuck. The door's open. Yeah. Well, the door's open, so it's your choice to leave.
Well, people already know what they have to change. Okay,
Yeah.
they're just not listening. They're not listening. But if a person right now, if that person's sitting in their basement and they're sitting there and they're thinking about how caustic my life becomes, you hate the very thing that you created. The easiest thing you can do is stand up and do 180 degrees from what you were doing that day, and your life will change. And it will change significantly. So if you're drinking a bottle a day, dump it down the drain. Figure out, go to AA. Figure it out. Surround yourself. Get rid of all your friends. Tell people to fuck off. Change your peer group. Start waking up early. Get on a schedule. Like all those little tiny things. Okay, well, how is that going to change my life? And next thing you know, you're out there walking. You bump into a guy. Excuse me, and that becomes your new best friend that helps you along the way. I was out here walking. Why? I was just in AA. See, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. But you have to put yourself in the position for that radical shift to happen. And we do that by getting out of the operating system and into the heart of who we are.
Yeah.
And it's not some kind of like woo-woo, blah, 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 whatever people say. But I'm telling you, it's the design of the entire planet. Every living thing is living through the process that we're talking about. We're not here to feel good. We are here. The experiences that we get in life may not be what we want, but they're what we need. And then it's up to us to transcend them.
Somebody goes through your program 40 days, gets humbled, You can't hide anymore, so you're bare. Basically, somebody told me you can't pickpocket a naked man, And I think basically at the end, you develop somebody that's fucking naked, and it's hard to steal from them, I guess. And from yourself, because a lot of us are just fucking robbing ourselves of time and opportunities by just staying there. What's next for somebody coming out of those 40 days? What do you say?
I mean, so it's stay the course, right? So they come out, 41 days, they leave, they go home, day 42, they're in an airplane, and they're back into what we call routine life.
What's that experience like for people? Like, what have you heard of people talk about when they just, all of a sudden they're like, I'm in an airport, and there's snacks here, and there's like, it's heated here. Like, what is that like for people?
Well, now you get the opportunity to use your superpower, which is your man's ability to choose, which is our superpower. And hopefully you have sharpened the tools enough and gotten the awareness enough. And some guys will go back to the trough initially. Yeah. They'll get home some days, they'll do some stuff, and the next thing you know, but they come back. Because here's the thing, it's not the same.
No.
It doesn't feel the same. You're not the same person. You've already changed. And so you start to feel that war that you create inside. I don't want this. So, but we're with guys for, an entire year, basically. So we have the pre-communication strategy that happens with them. So that helps them get off all the drugs, all the pills, all the stuff, all the things, brings awareness about breath work and about fitness and about all the things and the dietary changes that they're going to be making. We have our own cookbook called the Anti-Inflammatory Pharmacy. So it's about eating, things without inflammation. And
that changes.
Just the dietary changes insane. Believe me, I mean, I'm just like anybody else. I love to eat shit. But there's, and then quarterly we're with those guys. Then we have a course that we're just finishing now called Stay the Course, which helps them through the course of the year. And then they got to go on and live their lives.
Yeah.
If you're like constantly need somebody checking up on you for years and years and years, then the process wasn't right.
There's remember that movie Castaway?
Yeah.
I remember going through my own process of stripping everything off and stripping everything away. For me, it was pretty recent, and I'm not anywhere close to just being okay or feeling healed or shit like that. But I think I've killed a few very big monsters that were basically holding me back. I remember...
You stopped feeding them.
Yeah. I write a lot about my experiences, and it's my way of killing or letting go of some of those experiences. And I post them up online, and people read them openly. And all of those come from my own therapy journal. Basically, they're not something I'm writing to sell as a book or anything that people are like, Ed, write a book. No, this is me vomiting in public and people are watching me.
Purging yourself.
I let go of alcohol. I let go of some toxic relationships that I was hiding behind and shit like that. I remember coming to a realization that I was not only economically secure, but I was better or more so than anybody before in my family. That my kid was taken care of and her future was pretty secure. That I am making other people's lives better in a very clear and positive way. And I remember all that weight being, all that shit. And then feeling like Tom Hanks in that fucking movie at the end of it when he's standing at that crossroads. And then I was like, now what? Now what? Now what? Now what?
Yeah.
And
Now what? Here we are.
Yeah.
And so, like, as you bring your changes in your life path to other people, you inspire them to do the same. And then they inspire the next person to do the same. And the next person, and so on and so forth. And then, the world is always changed by someone.
Yeah.
Someone that's willing to stand up and be the example. Right? Doesn't mean you don't fail and you still screw up, have a hard time. That's all part of it.
Yeah.
It's all part of it. People always think like, oh, you got to like all figured out or whatever. You don't know how it is. I'm like, I'm just like, shut up. Like, give me this Winkler. I can't. I'm just sharing my journey in real time. That's it. And that actually helps you along your path. And we're all just at different levels of going through the same thing, which is rediscovering and uncovering.
Yeah. Yeah. Hiding from ourselves and then finding ourselves over and over and over again.
Yeah. Over and over you climb. It's like, just when you think you're kind of getting things figured out, something else. But now you lean into those things. You're like, oh man, okay, why is this? I used to have this fear of being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And so who showed up in my life? Only people that take advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I needed that. I needed to purge myself of that fear.
Mine is abandonment. And
right. So your relationships people started abandoning you.
Everybody abandoned me.
Correct. Right.
Exactly.
And then once you don't have a fear of abandonment, then you fall into real relationship with people. It's like I was talking about love, where, do I look at my wife and do I love her? Or do I only love her because I want to feel love back from her?
Yeah.
And so then I surround myself in these parasitic relationships, right? When your ability, like I asked my dad, I said, Dad, I asked him that question. And he goes, I love your mom more than I love myself. And I was like, that's impossible. How would you know you're doing that? He wouldn't know. He was just like, you wouldn't know. So ultimately, like, I used to think like my understanding of love is like so much different. True love is really its strength. It's ultimate strength and it's ultimate courage. True love. When you have a person that's balanced and centered within that is a special thing. And we should all be striving to get there. And, I think that if every single human being, veteran, whatever, it doesn't matter who just every single human being just took a step back and thought about that and thought about honoring themselves and learning about what love is, like, it would change in an instant. The whole world would change in an instant. All of a sudden, the two dudes beating each other with the bats would be like, hey.
Yeah.
It doesn't have anything to do with fighting or war or any of those things. It has to do with that is the greatest gift. It is truly the greatest gift. You think about Christ hanging on the cross. He says, hey, forgive them because they don't know what they do. After they flogged them and tortured them and beat them, and that's strength. I mean, that's as strong as it gets.
It went from retribution to love.
I started off, in retribution. My whole life was about retribution because I was just running from myself. And I wanted to be seen.
Yeah.
I wasn't seen as a kid. I never felt like anybody. it's hard to remember back, but like I remember being a kid and feeling like no voice, not heard, not important, nothing. And so what do? You start getting louder and louder and louder. Your kid comes home, you're like, hey, I'm busy, I'm going to work. Daughter comes back inside. She spills the milk over. You're like, hey, I gotta work. Like, go back. And next thing you know, she comes, she got a nose ring. You're like, whatever. Hey, get out of here. I got stuff I gotta do. And she comes back, she got a tattoo. You're like, okay. And then she comes back, she got a zebra head on. You're like, all right. So people want to be seen. People want to be seen. They want to be validated. And so they start to have these outward expressions that are negative and harm themselves so they could get seen because they're not seeing themselves. And we could all see the value within ourselves and the gift that we are to the world and begin to realize that it's our choices that are terraforming the planet. It's us. The whole planet is shaped and terraformed by people's choices.
Look within.
Look within.
Micah, thank you so much for this conversation.
Appreciate it, buddy.
If anybody wants to find out more about the project you're doing and ways of supporting it or ways of joining it, where can they find that out?
Yeah, go to heroesandhorses.org. You can follow us on Instagram at Heroes and Horses. And if you know some vets or you know people that need this process or need this program, look us up and
I'm going to share
that step.
I'm going to share this with my community. There's a lot of people out there that follow me for different reasons, and a lot of them just follow me for basically I'm jackass. Look at my process. So I think a lot of people are going to get a lot of use out of it.
I love you doing that because you know what, Ed, that takes courage. And it's been hard for me to share my life with people because you open yourself up for criticism and this and that, and you're out there on the world stage but when you really realize the impact that it's having on other people, because the world is in a state of suffering.
Yeah.
And if people don't stand up and get vulnerable and say, you know what, I've been rock bottom.
Yeah.
Just like you.
Yeah.
And get really truthful, you inspire other people to do the same. And I commend you for that.
My world has ended several times over, and here I am. If anything, that's the lesson I want to teach people.
Yeah.
Cool.
You're doing it.
Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, brother.